Hostelley. I'm the CEO of a B2B social media agency called Leadtail. We do lots around influencer marketing and have been doing that for quite a while. I'll now hand it off to let each of the panelists tell their own little story here on introducing themselves.
Hi, I'm Amisha Gandhi. I'm a VP at SAP Ariba, and I run influencer marketing. I started the influencer marketing program at SAP about 3.5 years ago, and I grew it from a pilot into a global program at the global and regional level. And now I've moved over to Ariba, which is a large business network. We transact about $2.1 trillion in commerce, business commerce, a year. And starting their influencer program, but also combining it with analysts, employee and brand advocacy, third-party communities, and brand partners.
Great, my name is Blaine Mathieu, and I work at the opposite of SAP, small tech startup called Vantiq, and we have a platform that enables enterprises to rapidly build the next generation of digital applications based on real-time data flows. And we've been doing, I think, some really interesting, innovative programs in terms of influencer marketing. And a quick caveat there, actually, Carter and his company Leadtail have been helping us on that.
So if you guys enlist Leadtail as your agency, I will get you speaking opportunities. That's the real soundbite there.
Unfortunately, we don't sell to marketers, so you're not doing me that much good, Carter, but that's okay.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Steele. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at a company called Leandata. We are in the sales and marketing tech space. We do lead to account matching, lead routing, and marketing attribution. Before joining Leandata about a year ago, I was at Marketo, so I went through one blip of their recent acquisitions. And I've also worked at companies like VMware and Informatica. And influencer marketing has always been front and center. I was super excited about this topic and excited to talk to you all today.
Ditto. Okay, so my name is Bryan Kramer, and not Steele. And I was an agency CEO for 17 years in the digital marketing, social media, and influencer space, working with enterprise companies. Moved on to being a fractional CMO, as well as a marketing coach, working with people to build their own influence as executives, and finally working as a working author. Who says that? There's no money in books, but I wrote. There's no B2B or B2C. It's H to H, human to human, and shareology.
And to be clear, Bryan is our token influencer. So that's his role. So we'll get to that in a second. There you go. Amisha, what the heck does influencer marketing mean? Let's sort of baseline this.
So for most people, when they think of influencer marketing, they think of Instagram and YouTube stars. I work at a B2B company, so that will only get us so far. No one is going to buy SAP software if they see someone on YouTube or Instagram with putting up beauty or food pictures, right? So we have a longer sales cycle in B2B. So for us, influencer marketing, the way we approach influencer marketing is, how do we work with external influencers, thought leaders, academics, people who will have some sort of influence on our buyers and our customers? How can we inspire them? How can we create experiences across the entire customer journey? So it's not just awareness. You see a lot of influencers at events, you see a lot of social media, and that's something that you want to do, but you also want to think about influencer marketing across the entire journey. So think about lead gen, demand gen, nurture. How can you work with these different types of influencers to help push your customers along the journey, but also provide them with a great experience of knowledge-based content or an experience in person by meeting them and learning from them. So that's something you really want to think about, is how you bring this all together so you can provide these kind of, as marketing is digital and people are mobile, how do you give these different sorts of contents, different sorts of experiences through your influencers' voices and to reach their audience so you're expanding yours?
And why the heck should someone at the CMO level be thinking about something like influencer marketing now? Karen, can you share some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, influencers to me are people that have a point of view and that are experts in their given field. It could be one of you in this room who happens to sit in a marketing seat or some other, line of business role in your company. But they are important because they help drive conversations in the market, they help educate our buyers, and they provide a credible source. So you may not know who all your influencers are in your space. They could be speakers, they could be authors, they could be bloggers, they could be traditional analysts like Gartner or Forrester. They could be a CMO or a head of operations or a head of sales who has a strong point of view, wants to educate and wants to build a community around knowledge. And that's why influencers are so powerful and so important, and you must surround yourself with them.
Yeah, if I could add to that, Carter, I think one of the reasons to do influencer marketing is they're fundamentally a force multiplier for your brand. Like, especially for small to mid-sized companies and even all the way to large organizations, your brand only has so much power, so much brand equity, but if you can borrow some of the brand equity of these influencers, these folks that the market is actually listening to, you can fight far above your weight. And even if you're already weighty, you can make yourself even more weighty. So that's fundamentally why we do influencer marketing, or at least one of the key reasons.
So how many of us here are active on social media? Twitter account, Instagram, Facebook, right? Come on, tell the truth. You all want to become more influential, don't you? Right? You'd love to be influencers. So let me turn it for a moment, because there's sort of two perspectives we want to talk about today. And one of the perspectives is, how do all of us become more influential? So let me turn it to Bryan, token influencer on the panel, Kramer, to provide a little bit of his perspective. Bryan, you've got what, 250,000 folks following you on social, and I mean, you are a CMO influencer, digital marketing influencer. How the heck did you do it?
Well, I'm glad that you called me an influencer, because if I called myself that, I'd be a douche. But influence is something that you really can't put a number to. I would never say that just because I have that many Twitter followers or social media followers that I am more influential than somebody who has 200, because those 200 may be more influential to their audience than somebody who has 250,000. So first of all, it's not totally about the numbers. How you become an influencer, I can test that right here. Raise your hand if you've ever influenced anyone to buy anything in your entire life. So everyone here is an influencer on something. And that means that anyone can influence somebody on a purchase for something at any time if you're totally bought into that product. If you're a VIP on that product and you just want to shout from the rooftops about that product. The job as marketers is to find those people that are shouting out your product. Sorry, this guy's taking my picture. Did you get it?
You're looking good, Bryan. You're looking good.
I just want to make sure we're influential. And so it's really important that we find those people. So case in point, I'll tell you from the influencer side. Anyone here use Clear at the airports to go through really fast through the X-ray lines? I lifted my phone when I was going through Clear because this guy grabbed my bag at the very beginning of the line, and I turned on video, and he grabbed my bag and he said, "It is so wonderful to see you. Thank you for being here. I will take care of this bag and we will get you through the line very, very quickly." And he walks me down and he says, "Just follow me. What is your name?" "I'm Mr. Bryan Kramer." He said, "Mr. Kramer, we will handle this for you." And he gets me through the line and fingerprint and all that and through in 2 minutes. Well, that video, I ended up posting it online. And Clear ended up re-sharing the video, and the video ended up getting over 10,000 views on it, and people started to really love the fact that this customer service was so awesome. So they ended up putting my picture up into all of their break rooms across the United States. Not planned, but everywhere I went, it was, "Mr. Kramer, how are you doing? Mr. Kramer, how are you doing? Oh my God, and can I take your bag?" And I'm like, I'm taking video of everything from now on. So anyway, they put it through. Well, I think it was about 6 months later, my wife and I were standing in the Las Vegas airport, and it was the same guy that we saw back in San Jose. And he came up with a massive hug, and he said, because of that video, I'm now the regional manager, and I help people and teach people how to do customer service and Clear wants everyone to be an influencer like you. And I'm like, this was random. So I loved the product so much, I wasn't expecting anything back. Those are the people that you want. You want to take those people and put them into a position where they can share your shit.
And Bryan, if someone wants to become more influential today, and you were starting today, what would you recommend they do? Is it just start tweeting out? What should they do?
I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks too, because I don't think there's one path. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can go do it. For me, it was content. So writing content and building content was the path for me. I started interviewing people on video, and interviews and learning from people is really interesting to me. Getting people on and then reflecting that back and sharing it with others. So I started turning those videos into public views. And before I knew it, people were learning not only from what I was learning from, but they started to follow me as somebody that might be able to be interesting in their life. So that's how I started. And that's what I would recommend is look at one form of content on something you're really interested in and go after it, like writing a book.
You know, one of the things we really want to do here for the rest of this panel is hone in on the practical aspects of it. And Bryan just made a great comment about video. So Blaine, let me turn it to you because you're actually doing some really interesting stuff. This is a setup question, by the way. You're doing some really interesting stuff around influencers and video. So tell us about Vantiq TV.
Vantiq TV. Well, check it out, vantiqtv.com. And before I get there, just a step back. When I started at Vantiq about a year ago, we were doing virtually no marketing whatsoever. Okay, so of course one of the first things you think of doing is, well, we need a social presence. We got to start tweeting and putting stuff on LinkedIn. And I'm going to probably piss off some people by saying this, but I'm actually not a huge believer in just doing social media marketing. That doesn't mean much to me. And because I don't like it, I don't appreciate it. There's no engagement there. But when Carter and I started to work together, we realized, no, we're not going to do social media marketing. We're going to do, we're going to get engagement marketing with thought leaders. And we started doing the standard stuff, creating a panel of thought leaders that we wanted to target, really doing account-based marketing in terms of thought leadership, using all the social channels. And then eventually, once we honed that, we decided, okay, let's take this thing big time. Let's start what is fundamentally a TV channel, a TV and broadcast station called Vantiq TV. And what we will do is we will create an enticing place to invite these thought leaders on to showcase their brand, showcase their company, their knowledge, their expertise. Bryan, we need to get you on Vantiq TV, I think, fairly soon. Are you coming?
How much do you pay?
That's a great question. That's a great question. How much do you pay?
Did you? Well, that's the cool thing about we pay absolutely nothing for the guests in Vantiq TV.
I'll be there.
Thank you. Exactly. And the reason they will be there actually is exactly what Bryan was talking about earlier. These folks, of course, they want to help their companies, their consulting firms, whatever, but they also want to help their own brand. And we've been doing this now 3 months, give or take. We now get hundreds of thousands of impressions for every episode we create. We've had the head of digital transformation at Volkswagen, the CIO of Penske Corporation, the chief analyst from IDC doing their digital transformation practice. These are guys you would normally have to pay 10 or 20 or 30 grand to do a webinar with, okay? But because we started this thought leadership platform for them and made it good, not cheap and hokey, but made it actually good and fairly professional, they're happy to come on. So now we've got a backlog of guests for Vantiq TV, and it's been really successful for us. So you're in about a month, okay? Can we do a month?
Okay, I'll check my calendar.
All right. And let me highlight a couple key learnings here, just so it's really clear to everyone. Influencer marketing works whether how many employees do you have?
35.
35. Amisha, how many employees do you have?
At Ariba, I think we have 3,000 to 4,000, and at SAP, it's 90,000.
Okay, so influencer marketing works across the sort of sphere of companies, startup to enterprise. The other thing, coming back to Bryan's question, so Blaine, you've had what, 15, I think, influencers and executives on Vantiq TV?
I think we're up to 20 now, actually, Carter. You've lost track.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's beyond 10 fingers, I start to... let's go to Bryan's question. How much are you paying them?
Yeah, as I said, we've never paid anybody.
Nothing.
In fact, quick anecdote, they had a big analyst at IDC. I told him about Vantiq TV, and he said, oh, great. His salesperson jumped in, of course, immediately and said, that'll be 30 grand. You know, we do webinars, 30 grand. I said, no. I took the salesperson off the email thread, talked directly to the analyst and said, this is not a sales engagement. I'm here to build your brand, to help your practice get more clients. I'll get you 200,000 impressions. I don't pay. He wrote back, when am I on? So it's not about, don't get sucked into the pay for play thing. You don't have to.
Yeah, the other thing I'd highlight is our experience is if you start the relationship with a check, it is always a transaction. We all like to bandy about this relationship stuff. If you start off with the number one question in your mind, which is, how can I, the brand, help the influencer? That is the beginning of a relationship. Now, it doesn't mean you don't pay them later if you're asking them to do a lot of stuff, but it's really important to keep in mind. Karen, you just wrapped up your annual conference, and it blew doors out. Tell us about that, and tell us about the role that influencers played in that.
I'd be happy to. So yeah, we do an annual conference called OpStars that takes place during Dreamforce. So we're sort of a satellite standalone event. But the reason it works is because we curate content for an audience that Dreamforce does not cater to. So it's operations leaders, be it sales or marketing or go-to-market, business ops, and that's what we design all the content around. That's where all the thought leaders and influencers come from. And we do focus first and foremost on content, and we find the best people that can help people learn, help create a great experience, and then networking. So we had about 1,600 people over 2 days in San Francisco. We did have folks like Forrester and Serious Decisions and in the marketing space, Matt Hines, but we had a lot of what I consider some of the more prominent influencers, which are heads of, the VP of Sales Operations for Ring Central, the head of marketing ops for GE Digital, and those are the people, when you think about content and influencers, it is about leading your market by educating all the possible buyers out there on what's happening in your space, in and around your space, and that's where influencers can help tell that story with you, and you can therefore create a bigger footprint.
One of the questions I hear often is, well, how, and this taps a little bit on what Karen was just saying, how do I identify who the right influencers are? Is it how many followers they have? Is it some notion of popularity, which Bryan says we shouldn't just look at that? So Amisha, when you think about and develop campaigns, influencer campaigns, how are you selecting and identifying influencers, and then how are you sort of aligning with them around whatever campaigns you're doing?
So when you think about, influencers, there's many different types of influencers. So there's social media influencers, there's industry influencers, there's also peer influencers, which are your own customers influence each other. They're your own employees, right? So those are all the different types of influencers that you can take a look at. But when you're looking at folks that aren't so close to, like, your customers or your employees, or even some of the third-party communities and associations you're working with, and you're looking at external folks, you really want to see, like Bryan said, it's not just about how many followers, because you can buy followers. There's this whole thing about fake followers. What we're really looking for and to drive in influencer marketing is engagement. So you want to see if this person is engaging an audience outside of just social, whether it's speaking, whether they've written a book, or have a popular blog post or podcast series. Where are they speaking? And what are they doing in their real life? There's IRL, the real life stuff that they're doing, plus the stuff they're doing online. And not everyone that we have in our program is super social. We also have macro influencers, which are more social media, and they're doing a lot of speaking, they're on a circuit. And then we have micro influencers who are more industry based, but they are extreme experts, and they even do implementation of your technology. So what they offer to your audience can be much deeper. So that's kind of how we identify. And then how do you engage with folks? Because, you know, like Bryan said, you know, some people will just ask you like, okay, well, if you want me to engage with you, it's going to cost X per tweet or whatever. I don't work with influencers like that because it becomes really transactional, and that means they're not really there to work with you to help you build a business. I'm looking to work with somebody to help me build my business, right? And you know, not a lot of influencers are waiting for like me to call them and like, yes, I can't wait to be in your program. They're really busy people. So when we approach them, we ask them, how do you engage with brands? What do you like to do? We're very, you know, we vet them before we even speak to them and say, I saw your articles in X, Y, and Z, or hey, I saw you speak at an event. I'd really love to hear how you work with other companies, or do you work with other companies? Would you like to? And then we have a two-way conversation, so you're actually building a relationship. And then if you do have a campaign in mind, you can say, by the way, I'm working on this campaign, and this is what we're doing. Are you interested? Would you like to be in this program? And be open to feedback, because they may come back and say, I think it's a great program. However, I would also think about this question or that angle. And they can really help you create, like what Karen was saying, that really good education, knowledge, content and that's an experience you're offering people that they're not going to get from your competitor.
Bryan, how many B2B brands have you worked with? I mean, you've worked with IBM, you worked with a number of them, right, as an influencer?
75 to 100.
So beyond fingers and toes, as I like to say.
Sorry?
Beyond fingers and toes. What is it like? Because we all bandy about the word relationship, and Amisha brought it up, but do B2B brands even know how to work with influencers? Or are you just another vendor?
Do B2B know how to work with the
Yeah, what are your
influencers?
experiences in working with them?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I think if you were to ask me that about 2 or 3 years ago, I'd say no, but now it's different. I think it's expected at this point that you do influencer marketing. I think the definition of it has changed, and it depends who you ask, and you'll get a different answer every single time. And so it really does come down to putting in a customized plan for each, or a custom plan for each one, because the cultural footprint, the product, the people, the influence, it's completely different every single time. There's no one answer I can give you, which is why I'm kind of skating around the answer. But that said, I do think that there are some pillars that need to be put in place in order for that to happen. I do think they understand what those pillars are. Oftentimes, though, I found in my previous life that it was a partnership of building influential relationships with the brand and with not only the influencer, but also the agency or whoever was running the influencer campaign. Because influencers need a go-to. They want to know that there's somebody that is there to have their back. Not that brands don't, but it is a total partnership, and so I think that's where the value really ends up finding some longevity into influencer relationships.
So one other thing for you, a question came in. Who is Gaylord Fokker, Bryan?
Well, you got my wife to laugh, which was the goal of that question. So the reason she's asking that is because, or he is asking that. The reason she laughed. That is my wife right there. So, is because I am Gaylord Fokker. So I'll admit it right now. And I have done a million things that are human and stupid and all kinds of, and I own it, and I put it up onto Twitter all the time. So every day I put a different tweet out, and I feel like it humanizes not only who I am, but also I think the bottom line there is not just to admit that I'm Gaylord Fokker, but also that brands do mess up. There are things that happen. You can't control what an influencer is going to say. You can't control what they're going to do. You don't know what they're going to do with the content you give them. And so there's all these unknowns, and you're trying to control the outcome of the content that you've either given to them or you've co-created with them, and now you don't know what they're going to do with it. And so you have to know that that's part of being human and knowing that this is a gray area that you want to work with them on. So you're working with a lot of Gaylord Fockers out there.
Well, let me switch gears here. We've got a few questions coming in around this topic. Karen, love to get your take on how do you measure success? How do you measure ROI around these sort of campaigns?
It's a great question, and I think there's multiple ways to do it. I think when I think about influencer marketing, it usually rolls up to an awareness strategy. So we're looking at extending our reach, amplifying our message. I look at customer engagement. I look at prospect engagement. So it impacts stuff in the pipeline. It impacts stuff getting to the pipeline. And it impacts a broader message in the market. So you could do things like message testing for resonance. If you're taking content out to market with an influencer, you certainly should be measuring your brand awareness, and influencers play a key stake in that. And it absolutely has an impact on engagement in the pipeline, so you can measure lead gen types of metrics as well. So across the life cycle, I think it's hugely important, and it can be measured multiple ways.
Totally.
Cool. And Amisha, I've got a two-part question for you. Okay. So part one is, what are the sort of metrics that you look at when you sort of measure a campaign? And then part two is, are there any platforms or tools that you use as part of sort of, I'll call it an influencer tech stack?
Sure. So when we look at ROI, we're really looking at, depends on the campaign that you're doing. So we did an interactive ebook with 32 influencers for a launch of a product line. And so we took a look at, how many views did we get, how many downloads. We had social media metrics, which is awareness, and all the coverage from the influencers. Some of them blogged about it. Some of them did a podcast about it. So we had those numbers on the awareness, and then we looked at, there was a CTA to a research study coming off of every page. How many leads did we get, and how many people came to, and registrations did we get? So we had a whole package of metrics to look at and say, here's a complete picture of what this asset was able to drive. So, for something like that we did, it was the first time we did it, and we didn't know if it was going to work. We ended up getting 21 million impressions the first week. And then the social media was off the charts, and all 32 influencers shared it, and they shared it not only for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, 6 months, because they liked the asset so much, and they actually got questions from people they were working with. They got questions asked from our competitors about the book, but it was really good, just pure thought leadership. So that's something to think about. But then the metrics actually showed that actually this really helped drive the customer journey in multi-touch points.
Cool. So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to see if each panelist can give some quick advice to any of us out there that are starting to get going with influencer marketing. This could be a do or a don't, if you will.
Do get to know your influencers more than, just on surface level, and, not only during the times that you need to work with them, but throughout, and keep in touch, see what they're doing, and see how you can help them also. And then one don't.
If you'd like. Sure, go ahead. Sure.
Don't assume that your influencer knows what you want. They don't read minds. They do a lot of things really well. They speak, but be really clear and upfront what your expectations are. I've never said to an influencer, "Oh, when you come, please make sure you write all about this and tweet about this." We want it to be organic. So allow and create situations and offer good content so they have good stuff to amplify. But you can also ask them for their feedback. But be clear about why you're inviting them and what you want to do. And if you're working on an asset or something, be really clear about what that will look like and what you're really expecting. So they don't, you don't end up in a situation where you're like, oh, they didn't really do anything, they must not be engaged. It might be that wasn't the right engagement.
Yeah, I guess one idea that I have is to take everything that we've said and then take it one level further in terms of using your prospects as influencers. And so most of the time when you're interacting with people, especially in the B2B setting, you're talking to people who are experts in their companies, in their domains, and they could actually be influencers. And now what we're increasingly starting to do with Vantiq TV, as an example, is to invite prospects as one of the first ways of building engagement with these companies, is to invite the prospect to be a guest on Vantiq TV, right? Imagine if the first interaction you had with a prospect was not trying to market or sell them something, but to bring them into a non-threatening environment where we can just have a talk about the space, about what's going on at their company, about what their needs are. And then after that deep engagement has happened and they're literally our friend, then you have the sales engagement where you ask them to pay you money. That's just something we've been working on for the last month or so, and I can tell you it's been super powerful. So think outside the box in terms of who an influencer is. Even people you're selling to can be influencers, and you can use these channels in very powerful ways.
First, start with listening and watching what your customers are paying attention to. And those are the influencers you want to influence. And absolutely make your customers influencers too. There's nothing better than to pair a customer with an influencer and help lift them so that your customer becomes the ultimate thought leader in the market. That will just drive your brand and your message forward in the most spectacular way.
I would say everything everyone here said, and great points. And I would also say co-create content. When you bring influencers into your organization, ask them what they think your product should be doing or your services should be doing, and build off of that. Because they know what they want. They're as close to your customer, if not closer. So if they are your closest ally to taking something forward, we planned a full-day event a while ago with IBM, brought them in and had them design the future. And then we took all of that and created content from it. It was their idea of what the future looked like on the ways to work. And then we created 12 months of content under their names that got shared out, which ended up becoming something that they were proud of. And that uplifted the brand. So there's all kinds of ways that you can co-create with them without having to ask them to do more than they have time to do. The other thing I'd say is everybody should lift their phone and take a picture right now and influence this conference with the hashtag right now.
Let's do it, folks.
If you're going to turn out to be an influencer, this is the first step. Ready, set, go. Hashtag CMO Inflect. And you can @ Bryan Kramer if you want.
And on that note, thank you very much, everyone.